Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you are. Today is the last day of June, so June 30th, and this is another of our bi-weekly SIG CLI meetings. My name is Maciej, and I'll be your host today. Our agenda is pretty packed, so let's get on with the items on the agenda. First of all, the announcements. There's a code freeze in slightly over a week, specifically next Thursday, if I remember correctly, and my calendar foo is working the way it should be working because Thursday is July 8th. So that should be enough of time for folks that have an extended weekend this upcoming to end the elements that the PRs that they need. There's another freeze for tests a week later, so there's a little bit more time if you want to improve the testing. If you have any particular PRs that you are waiting, me, Eddie, Phil, Sean, just please ping us directly on Slack or in a private message or whatever to get them reviewed as soon as possible. I know that I own a couple of reviews. If Nikita will be watching that, I will be looking at her PR for sub resources tomorrow morning. So it's top of my list currently. Eddie, you wanted to add the announcement about Logothemy episode of Kubectl?
Yeah, real quick on the code freeze. So I know, Sean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure the Googlers have off Monday and Tuesday next week. And I took off the entire week. So yeah, we have like the rest of this week really to like crush those in.
I'm in all the time. There's no PTO, there's no day offs in Poland. So I'll be working like crazy until the next Thursday. And after that, I'm gonna pass out. But but seriously, you can always ping me in a private message. It will probably be the fastest. I have a couple of unread notifications in Slack, so private messages are probably the easiest to reach out to me.
Yeah, and so the LGTM is the new cloud native TV that they're doing. It's a show about how to get started contributing to CNCF projects. And so they asked me to be on it last Friday for a Kubernetes and kube control walkthrough. So if you have any interest in how to contribute to Kubernetes and you're new here, that might be something worth watching.
Okay. Sean, anything other that you wanted to add to the announcement section?
No, I think that amongst the leadership, we also have the July 6th. I think Eddie's already on it for, we have to put in a proposal for a maintainer track presentation. We have KubeCon North America coming in October, and it's in my home city of Los Angeles. And yeah, and it sounds like we're going to be able to show up in person. So it'll be really good to see you guys in person if you guys can make it, if you feel comfortable with the protocols, etc. And if we actually have it in person, it sounds like we are.
Yeah, I'll probably skip this one. Unfortunately, it's a little bit of time for me to get there. I'm not sure what the world will look like in October. So my my personal impression is that it might be just the US mostly for the KubeCon, but we'll see how things will go. If I remember correctly, they are planning to do it hybrid approach, so there will be some folks joining virtually and some other folks that will be in person. But SIG CLI will be there one way or the other, or both way at the same time. We will figure it out as usual.
That's October 12th through the 15th.
And I just dropped a link into the chat for QBland. So anyone who's coming should come to Disney afterwards.
Yeah. Oh, I'm gonna envy you that one. Now I regret not picking the QB land after San Diego 2 years ago. Anyhow, do we have anyone new on this call that would like to introduce themselves, tell a little bit of who they are, what they are interested in contributing? I'm scrolling through the list. I think I've seen most of you. But if you're new, now is your time to speak up.
Okay, hi. I'm new here. I was thinking about contributing to a SIG release during the past period. So, yes, I'm attending to know more about SIG CLI. And maybe I will take part in SIG CLI before. Yes.
Okay, awesome. Welcome very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that was the only person that I did not recognize in the attendees list. So unless I missed someone. Okay, I hear none. So we can jump over to the main topic. Eddie, you want to take it away from here?
Yes. So this was so if you're not on the SIG architecture mailing list, you should join. But we started a meeting to do a bi-weekly KEP reading club review. So we pick a few KEPs and go through them. This one was up on the agenda for last week, and we read through it and had a whole bunch of questions actually afterwards about certain pieces in here. The TLDR is this adds a kube control logs node command type thing so you can view node logs. And Tim Hawken and Dims had a bunch of questions after we were reading this. It doesn't sound like it's making this cycle, so that's okay. There's no rush on this, but there's definitely some things that we should address. And I wrote down most of the notes here on the agenda.
Yeah, it would be good to ping the author, either of the PR. The PR is still in work in progress state from what I was checking before this call. I remember looking at the cap, it seemed reasonable to have the implementation, although yes, even after the cap merged, there was quite a few questions from different people. I remember that Tim also commented on the cap for different angles, how to approach this topic. So even though on one end, there is a lot of questions, on the other hand, there is a sufficient support to having such functionality in Kubernetes and in kubectl as well. But like Eddie said, it doesn't look like it's gonna make 122. If the PR is in a work in progress a week before the freeze, I'm not sure if that's gonna land. I'm not sure which part or how far they are with their PR, whether that's something that they haven't completed on the CLI end or on the kubelet end, because it needs to have both sides completed.
Yeah. One of the big ones that jumped out was just like adding a subcommand to an existing command is like super messy. And the edge case of like, what if you have a pod named nodes? Like, that's gonna break everything, isn't it?
I mean, if I remember correctly, that was not about adding a subcommand, or at least when I looked at it initially, it wasn't about adding a subcommand, but it was more about adding another resource that we would support. So similarly to how you can do kubectl logs, I don't know, deployment or logs pod, and specify a particular resource name, it would work similarly for nodes, where you would specify kubectl logs node, whatever the name of your node is. That's at least how I imagined that initially.
But logs by default just looks for node pod names.
Yes, if you don't specify a no resource name, we default to pod. And honestly, I would prefer and this is probably just for historical reasons. When we were adding additional resources support, we are always requesting you to explicitly specify what is the resource name you're expecting to work the logs command against. So you can do kubectl job my job, or you can do kubectl deployment my deployment, and the logic behind kubectl is responsible to figure out which pod, and it picks first pod in deployment, stateful set, daemon set, replica set, job. I don't know what else we support there. And that's basically what I would expect with Node, that it would just, you specify node/node name, and it would reach out to the logs of a particular node.
Okay, I'll get these comments and questions on the KEP then, and we can address it there. The reason I had this on the agenda was I figured this was going to try to get rushed in, but hopefully it doesn't.
Yeah, if there are more questions and answers, it would be good to get them answered before turning this on. It looks like the author haven't looked at the PR. Do we have a link of this particular? Let me try to quickly find. I had it open earlier today. Yeah, so the author a week ago said that he has a work in progress PR, but it's looking very tight at this point. So even if the author is aware that this got stuck, then yeah, I'm not sure. It looks like it wasn't reviewed.
Can you drop a link to that in the chat, please?
Yes, of course. That's the PR. I'll probably come at the PR here as well, and the notes, and the cap was. Yeah, definitely I'm in favor of having this sorted out before we actually jump into implementation, if there are questions.
Okay, I'll get all those comments over there.
Cool, awesome. Does anyone have any questions about this particular feature or comments that they want to share with the group? Okay, hearing none. Eddie, you have another topic, ignore delete events.
So this one's hopefully quick. This was the issue that I did on LGTM, and I threw together the quick solution. The problem was people were seeing duplicated events, but the reality that I think Brian dug into was that these are really just delete events that are coming across 60 minutes after they're garbage collected. But that wasn't surfaced in any of the events. So you just kind of see like 60-minute-old events pop up with the same exact data in it. So I opened a PR. It's a work in progress. I have a change I still have to push up, but I added so I defaulted the command to not outputting delete events because I feel like they're not useful for the user. And then I added a flag for include delete events. So you can opt into those delete events to get the old behavior, but I consider this a implementation miss to print those out in the first place. So what are your thoughts on that before I fix up all the test suite?
My great desire is to have the kubectl events command pushed over. If I remember correctly, there is someone who did create it. Brian created a PR that I still owe review because we merged the PR, the cap couple releases back. And unfortunately, the original author did not get a chance to complete the move. So I'm wondering, because basically the problem with the get is that you are introducing flags that are for specific type of resource, where our get is meant to be generic command. That's why I was inclined to create the kubectl events where we would have a greater control over filtering. For example, if you do kubectl describe, what we do is we return the related events to the described resource. If I initially thought that maybe we should just add additional filtering into get, but the problem is we will be introducing flags that are tied to only one resource, and kubectl get is meant to run with every possible resource. So that will be my only worry. And that's why I would probably try to work around by introducing the kubectl watch events command, and then we can work specific details about it there.
No, I think you're right. That makes sense. We shouldn't be introducing flags for specific resources like that. All right, I'll close that PR and I'll put effort into the open PR and see how we can get that across the finish line.
Exactly. If you have the resources, please get a review, which reminds me, and I'll do that in a bit. It would be nice. It's definitely not something that we'll be able to finish for 122, but it would be nice to get it completed and over the finish line for 123. If we have people looking at the PR, giving it a try, even if that will be introduced as an alpha command, which is the normal thing, we could get it out there and gather feedback and then work out from there. Which reminds me, I wanted to do a big shout out to 3 people: Brian, Mark, if I remember correctly, and Bill was the 3rd person. I need to double check for the batch completions. They did an amazing work. Yeah, Eddie just pasted out the PR. I finally got the chance to look at the PR. That's not the one. Yeah. So yes, that was Mark, Bill, and Brian. They put a lot of effort, Mark for creating, and Bill and Brian for actually looking at the PR, providing very valuable review. I really liked, and I only got there at the end result, which is very clean, very nice, very contained. It was like a pleasure to actually review this PR at the current state, because it was simple and very very readable. So I'm very happy that we got it in, and I'm very thankful to all 3 of those gentlemen for actually pushing this over, and especially waiting for this amount of time, because that's more than 6 months from what I'm looking at the initial opening of the PR to actually get it over the hump. So thank you very much, and big shout outs to the 3 of you. Okay, do we have any other topics or stuff that that folks want to talk about? I don't know, any particular PRs that you want to get looked at, or before the code freeze?
As a follow-up on the topic we discussed about the YAML spacing issues in Customize, Natasha and I and Mike have been working on that problem, and we have some work in progress open. Like Natasha has a PR that fixes all the problems, and we have essentially vendoring it into Customize solution that we are intending to move forward with today. because the maintainer agreed to make a fix, but did not come through with it in time. So we're going to use Natasha's is the plan.
Is there a better YAML library out there? This dude's not really on the ball. I know this is being recorded. Sorry, Gustavo, but seems like he said he has 40 other meetings. It seems like a pretty serious issue, and it's breaking Kubernetes. And he's like, yeah, well, fork my library. See you later.
Yeah, it seems pretty unfortunate that it's just the one person maintaining it, and it's such a busy, prominent individual who is doing that. I think Phil would be able to speak to this more specifically than me, but my guess is that the reason we're using this one is it's an implementation of YAML 1.2, and most of the other ones are implementations of YAML 1.1. So KYAML specifically wants 1.2 semantics and things like comment preservation that most of the other don't support. So yeah, Phil could confirm, but that's my understanding of why we are using this one in particular and KYAML specifically.
Yeah, Gustavo he's the CTO of Canonical, and he's like super busy and really smart. When I was trying to upgrade Cobra so we could do the completions and all that other stuff, I ran into a ton of issues with the YAML library, and Gustavo did put a bunch of work into like reverting some PRs and making things, but we still have this issue of just like the spacing is going to break everything in the Kubernetes project if we change anything. It like changed how white spacing is handled. So we probably have to figure this out at like a SIG architecture level with some other folks.
Yeah, potentially just connecting with him to add more kind of contributors to that might be a pass, because we're sort of in an unfortunate bind here where he's got some strong opinions about how it should evolve and little time to approve or help others contribute. So we're sort of in this bottleneck scenario. So
yeah, for those who didn't see, Natasha and Mike both had PRs up at various points in the past 2 weeks asking for feedback from the maintainers, saying like, this seems to work. Can you please let me know if this is what you had in mind? We would really like to get this merged for the deadline. And there was no response on either PR, so we don't have direct feedback on our implementations. They pass the tests, they pass our tests when we vendor them in, but that's the situation.
Okay, I noticed that Katrina nicely transitioned to stand-ups. Do we have any other sub projects that want to present their stand-up, or folks that they want to report what they've been doing over the past last weeks?
I want to ask everyone to give some support to Eddie's proposal about not shooting the feed, because I don't want to delete all my PVs, all my physical volumes again, instead of all of my physical volume claims. And this actually happened. Fortunately, is what it was on a staging cluster, but yeah, Eddie, go Eddie. I support you on that.
Yeah, probably all of us have been at one or more heavy stage of removing something.
I couldn't have written any of that without Katrina. She's a wordsmith and amazing. But I am so status update on that. I'm planning to talk to Tim Hawken hopefully this week, and him and I were tossing around some ideas that we might throw out for like the admin API or something. So we'll see what happens. I feel like it's just stalled out now, and it's not going to make the release in any way. So there's no reason to rush it. So we'll just see where it goes.
I saw that Brendan Burns had just recently also given what sounded like productive advice or feedback. What did you think of that, Eddie?
I like the idea. I still think that that's all orthogonal solutions. Like the locking thing is great. I think we should absolutely implement it. But going back to quote Katrina, the issue is not that there are things that should never be deleted. The issue is that people have the ability to make a mistake and they're making it. So opting into like a locking mechanism doesn't really solve that issue. But I like the idea. I still think we should do it. So.
Okay, it looks like we're halfway through and there are no additional topics that we want to cover. So with that, I'm gonna give everyone about 30 seconds more to speak up. If not, I'm going to close the poll. And it looks like most of the folks, or some folks, have other calls around this time. So I think we can call it a day for today. Thank you very much, all. See you in 2 weeks for another SIG CLI call. Thank you very much. Bye, all.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks. I'll miss the next meeting because I'll be out on vacation, but see you guys.
Enjoy the vacation. Bye.